You should never touch a hangboard unless you've been climbing for at least 5 years.
It's basically impossible to get injured on the dangle board, bruh.
Hangboarding is a waste of time because it's nothing like real climbing.
Hangs are the single best way to get better at climbing!
The stone masters didn't need hangboards to send your project in hiking boots.
Regardless of all the conflicting opinions out there, there are some solid reasons and very strong climbers to support hangboarding as a good tool. But in my experience as a PT, there is a higher risk of injury than some people think. So, if you want hangboarding to actually help you climb better and not leave you sidelined, I challenge you to answer these 6 questions first. Because if you can't, I say you're not worthy of the almighty wooden dangle device. Fictitious just sent us their brand new hangboard called the Monolith. We're not sponsored by them, but we do have an affiliation with them, so if you're interested in supporting a small Colorado business and this channel, be sure to use that affiliate link to buy your next hangboard. Question number 1. Do you know if hangboarding is actually a good use of your training time? This one sounds super obvious, but it's surprising how many climbers can't give a good answer.
As effective as hangboarding can be, climbers often have other deficits that should be addressed. Finger strength is great, but you should really fix those terrible shoulder mechanics. Yeah, one-arming the 6 mils would be nice, but you should probably learn the difference between a full crimp and a half crimp. And sure, maximum finger recruitment is something you want, but if you look like a floppy noodle on the wall, your finger strength doesn't matter. Since we have a limited amount of time and energy to train, we have to be strategic. Don't just assume finger training should take up most of that time.
Question number 2. Do you know how to load your fingers without putting yourself at risk? Hangboarding safely requires knowing how much load your fingers can handle as well as proper finger, back, and shoulder mechanics. Inexperienced climbers risk starting off at too high an intensity, repeatedly exposing their fingers to near max forces while not having the shoulder and back stability to control the load. Some may impatiently shock load their fingers or fight through the pain for an adrenaline-fueled PR. This is how pulley, lumbrical, and FTP injuries can happen. The friction from allowing your fingers to be forced open under heavy load is thought to be a cause of pulley injuries.
Hangboard training should actually be a relatively calm, controlled experience, usually with a half crimp, though exact finger position will depend on your finger anatomy and goals. More importantly, you shouldn't be sliding off the hold during every hang, as this changes the force on your fingers. As a rule of thumb, if you can't maintain stable shoulder and finger positions for the full duration of your hang, you should reduce the weight or duration or increase the edge size.
Question number 3. Do you know how to integrate more training into your routine? This is possibly the most common mistake climbers make when starting to hangboard. They'll pick a protocol, get psyched, do their hangs, then go about their normal climbing and training like nothing has changed. Unless your training load was very low before you started, this approach usually leads to problems. Why? Because our tissues have a limited capacity for doing work, and they need enough time to recover in between loads. Too much workload will exceed your body's ability to recover, resulting in a downward slope of chronic fatigue and ultimately failure of some tissue, often in the fingers or shoulders.
To fix this, are you willing to potentially reduce your climbing time in order to account for the increased load to your fingers, back, and shoulders from hangboarding? We would certainly recommend doing so if you don't have a good feel for your work capacity. For example, if you currently climb at a high intensity 3 times a week, you may need to drop down to 2 times a week for a while when you start hangboarding. Or continue climbing 3 times a week, but focus on low intensity technique climbing on the day you hangboard.
Question number 4. Do you know how your age, prior injuries, and fitness background should affect your training load? There is a lot of advice on hangboarding on the internet, but one thing none of it can account for is that each person is unique. Your age, genetics, past injuries, sleep quality, nutrition, prior training, etc. can play a large role in determining how much volume and intensity you can handle on the hangboard. Are you a teen kid that weighs 80 pounds, sleeps 11 hours a night, and has the recovery time of a video game character? Or are you a 30-something V5 climber with a rotator cuff injury a few years back, working 60 hours a week, thinking coffee equals breakfast, and a little pain in your fingers?
This is where you'll have to be honest with yourself about your true capabilities rather than trying to do what works for someone else. Adults will generally need more recovery time than those pesky teen kids. They can train every day without slowing down. You might need to limit yourself to a day on, day off schedule. Of course, you can avoid a lot of that trial and error by getting personalized advice from a good coach. Shameless plug for our buddy Dan Bell. None of that will matter though if you can't answer this next question.
Question number 5. Do you know how to progress and track your hangboard training? If you keep doing the same hang week in and week out, you'll quickly stop progressing. While it's natural for progress to slow and even plateau at times, you should be seeing a relatively consistent upward trajectory, whether that means you're able to add some weight to your hangs or you just complete your sets with less effort than before. If you don't experience this, you're probably either doing too much work or not enough.
The obvious way to determine if you're ready for higher intensity or volume is to go off your effort level. If you complete every hang with ease, you can increase the intensity next time. If you struggle hard through the last few hangs, you're not ready to increase. In general, you should always have a second or two of hanging left in the tank. Finally, you'll want to log your hangs each session so you have a record of what you've done and if your training is working. This allows you to judge if you're doing too much or too little and allows you to spot dips in performance that could precede an injury if not accounted for.
Question number 6. Do you understand hangboard protocols? If you don't follow a structured plan with your hangboard, you're essentially taking the try random stuff and hope it works approach. You can save yourself a lot of time and effort using a structured protocol instead. There are many different ones, but the most common protocols are max hangs, repeaters, and minimal edge. Even just these 3 vary significantly in rest time, load intensity, and purpose. For many climbers, I recommend max hangs. They are easy to progress and modify, and the fact that they are a singular repetition allows you to really monitor your form and keep the quality very high.
I'd recommend checking out the videos from Lattice and/or Dave McLeod on hangboard protocols. We'll link those in the description.
If you want to support us making more content like this, please consider buying a t-shirt or using the affiliate links in the description. And if you want a private, in-person, or web consultation from me, you can schedule one easily on our website. Until next time, train, climb, send, repeat!